Today on Locked On Rockies, well, it's still a loss, but at least when you compare it to the other losses of the season, the Rockies were in this game, had opportunities, didn't necessarily fall completely flat. There was some life, there was some pulse, but man, there are some concerns about two veteran players.
You are Locked On Rockies, your daily Colorado Rockies podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Rock on Rockies fans, welcome into the Locked On Rockies podcast for today, the 10th day of April in the year 2024. I'm your host of the Locked On Rockies podcast, Paul Holden, bringing you your daily Colorado Rockies talk right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, where you can find your team every day. If your team is the Colorado Rockies, guess what? You're in the right spot, because that's what we do each and every day. Here's talk about Colorado Rockies baseball, free and streaming on your favorite streaming services, as well as on the Locked On Rockies YouTube channel, where you can be part of the show. You can let me know what's on your mind. You can fire off your Rockies hot takes, just like, let's see, who are we going to go with today? Let's see. All right. I liked this one from yesterday because I think this is a good one. TKOP 8752. It's to no surprise to me that this fan base gets upset that Freeland fired that ball at Montero after a frustrating inning. This fan base is not used to having too many guys play with fire on this team. Freeland has been one of them, even though his performance hasn't been good through the years, and Arenado was the other one who we got rid of him. You have to have some passion to win games. Not every player can be as calm as Charlie and Tovar. Freeland, I applaud your fire. And I agree completely there. That's what I was saying there is it's not, they even mentioned it on the broadcast there as I'm dealing with my little poofy hair here in the outside of this hat. But it's not that I don't like the fire. It's one of the best things about Kyle Freeland. I mean, the broadcast mentioning it when they go over and pan over and he's sitting in the dugout and they're like, he's not a lot of smiles there from Kyle. I mean, he's been an intense guy that brings the energy. Certainly, I'm just saying, that's a moment that ball players would at least I think would say, hey, a little unnecessary, because when you're doing when the frustration gets to that level and on that play, you're just asking for trouble instead of and with the way things had gone for Kyle and with the way things had gone for Kyle in his first two starts. And with the way things were going for Kyle in that inning, the last thing you need to do is let your frustrations boil over into the point where you overthrow a ball to first base and a 2-out rally continues and you continue to get further behind in that ball game. But I agree that there needs to be some energy. There needs to be some passion. And something you're seeing more from the Rockies. I think it's been tough in the first stretch there, where this team hasn't shown a lot of energy because there wasn't a lot of things to be showing the energy about. So, but hey, I appreciate it, TK. Thank you so much for tuning in and letting me know what's on your mind, just like you can here on the Locked On Rockies YouTube channel. Fire off your comments. Let me know what's on your mind, because when you subscribe and like the videos there on the Locked On Rockies YouTube channel, it's the easiest way to help the show grow. We really, really appreciate all of your support and tuning in there and joining us. So let's dive into the game from last night. And it's a weird way to say, because it's a loss. A loss is a loss. It's still a loss. The Rockies still only have 3 wins. They're 3-8. The hole is deep. But when you look at games like last night, and when you look at the fact that it's a 1-run loss, when you look at the fact that it was Merrill Kelly on the bump, I mean, there's a lot of things you look at, and you can't necessarily sit there and be all that disappointed, other than the fact that they lost and they missed out on some opportunities, because they did generate some. But at least in this game, it wasn't striking out 3 pitches, looking abysmal. The Rockies, with runners in scoring position, did put the ball in play, actually lacing the ball pretty well, unfortunately just right at Arizona defenders. And I mean, I appreciate that this team wants to be more aggressive on the base pass. They haven't had a chance to, and they've gotten a slow start. But that double steal, with a catcher that is proven to be, I mean, I don't know. I think catcher is such a tricky position, but I mean, is there a better catcher in the game right now than Moreno for Arizona? I mean, not only was he incredible at the dish, but also cutting down 2 Rockies runners in that game. And they weren't slouches either. I mean, Brenton Doyle was caught on one of them, and then Ryan McMahon got the surprising back pick on the double steal. It's man, I think in those situations you got to tip your cap, but I would not be running in that situation. Like, of all the areas, of all the times to start running, I just don't think that double steal was the right or situation. Mixed in again with the fact that in some of these opportunities, especially with Nolan Jones, the strike zone again left something to be desired. It's not like it was too brutal, but that Ryan McMahon at bat where he hits the dribbler off the plate, where he misses the strike call and then misses the fact that should have been a foul ball, that's the frustrating type of stuff. But it's not that stuff is out of the Rockies' control. I mean, you can't control the zone. And I really don't hate the takes that Nolan Jones was taking on those strikeout lookings that he had. I mean, it was a tight zone. There were tight pitches to take. I think in the second strikeout, I would have rathered him fire off that pitch instead of let that one, go. But when they're that close, when it's that close, and when they are drawing some walks, at least here, Charlie Blackmon getting it was interesting that Merrill Kelly looked shaky for a little bit in terms of his control, something we've never seen before. Charlie Blackmon gave Kelly his second and third walks of the season yesterday. So I think that's another thing that's a benefit of the doubt. I think when you have a pitcher like Merrill Kelly on the mound, the umpire is going to lean there. And we saw it there. I can't remember who it was. I think it might've been in that Rymack at bat. I'm not remembering for certain, but there's a pitch up in the zone late in the game that about 2 baseballs high that Kelly gets. I mean, you're not going to get the umpire to back you up when you're going up against that level of talent and someone that is so good at not walking you in Merrill Kelly. I think that was something but at the same time, I think the umpiring crew should have been recognizing the fact that Kelly's control wasn't great. A 3-walk day for Merrill Kelly is something that means his control wasn't good. It just, when you're going up against top level pitching talent, not only are they going to hit that spot, not only are they going to put those pitches right on the lines and really flirt with that zone, but they're going to get the umpiring is going to back them up. I mean, we know that to be true. If you're in a zone, the umpire it usually helps you out a little bit. Usually it's a way that the umpire can build confidence as well. Because if you're peppering the zone and you're hitting it, then, things are more likely going to be strikes. But if you're throwing things all over the yard, if you're having issues with control, then that's a whole different story. The Rockies don't have a lot. I mean, and for Rockies pitching wise, it wasn't the worst day. It was just moments where the Rockies, you're giving them too many opportunities late. I mean, especially when Cal Quantril bounces back. I mean, he gets Coors fielded in the first inning and then, lets up one more. But after that, settles in for a quality start. I mean, you'll take this. You'll take this line, especially. Of course, the 3 earned is tough, but 6 innings pitched, 8 hits, 3 earned on 6 strikeouts to no walks. That is an incredible line there in terms of we've seen Rockies struggle with walk issues this year. So now we've seen another moment with a 5+ strikeout performance from Rockies pitching with no walks at home. That's a good sign, especially when you're going toe to toe with a Merrill Kelly. Unfortunately, it's sometimes you get beat. Second pitch of the game for Cal Quantrill, it gets hit out of the yard, and he goes on to give up those other 2 runs. But what an adjustment from Cal! What an adjustment for him to keep the Rockies in this game and go out to have a really solid start and really hit that control. I mean, no walks is something that I will love and love to see. It's so critical for Rockies pitching. It's been a problem throughout this year. It was a problem in that game as well. Both Victor Vodnik and Tyler Kinley having 2 walks in the inning to 1 strikeout. Those mismatched of more walks than strikeouts just can't happen from the bullpen. But the pitching wasn't the issue, and the offense, They did get some hits. They did strike out a bit yesterday. With 6 strikeouts, but for the Rockies, 6 strikeouts is a lot better than 10 plus that we're used to. So, of course, this team had opportunities. This team had moments, and you're bummed. But it's a team that looked more on par with the Arizona Diamondbacks. It's a team that didn't look outmatched. It's a team that looked like if they were able to get the big hit that they were looking for, Rockies could have won this game. It could have won the first series of the season. They have a chance to do so today in the finale. But in terms of the losses we have seen for the Colorado Rockies, this one was really probably the least frustrating of the season. I actually, leaving this game, I sat there and just said, hey, the Rockies played a nice hard-fought battle, and we'll see if they can get the series win. The Rockies really got to win a series here. To go through the whole homestand and have opportunities to win both series and not get away and not pull it off, man, that's a tough one. But the Rockies, if they can get this series win today, that'll be a nice boost heading onto the road, because they after this interesting road trip for the Rockies, where they will then be where it's East Coast and North, where it's Blue Jays and Phillies on the road, 2 teams that can certainly score a lot of runs. So and it's the road for the Rockies. So really, really big to get that series win today. Put you 1 win behind Arizona and keeps you a little bit further from the absolute basement of the NL West. 2 veteran players that we are real nervous about. One I will give the benefit of the doubt. The other one, I don't know. Well, I will give the benefit of the doubt, but the problem is it is tough sledding for this one player in particular. We will get to all of that and more coming up on today's episode of Locked on Rockies. Before we do that, though, got to tell you about the folks that help make this show possible, and that includes PrizePicks. You love daily fantasy sports. I know you love fantasy sports out there. And why aren't you on PrizePicks? Because PrizePicks is America's #1 fantasy sports app with more than 3 million members. It's the easiest and most exciting way to get in on the action while you watch your favorite sports and players. You just pick more or less on 2 or more player stats and watch the winnings roll in. That could be innings, that could be hits, strikeouts, walks, all sorts of baseball. But it's not just baseball. They got something from every sport for you to pick from, whether it be LeBron, whether it be Ezekiel Tovar, whether it be Cale Makar, Nathan McKinnon, Nikola Jokic. You can pick from all the sports, and you can check it out in all more than 30 states across the country, including California, Texas, and Georgia. PrizePicks now offers weekly promotions and special offers for the biggest moments in sports. Download the PrizePicks app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. That is a $100 first deposit match when you use code LOCKEDONMLB on the PrizePicks app. PrizePicks, pick more, pick less. It's that easy. Folks, this is the Locked On Rockies podcast, and we're free and streaming on your favorite streaming services, bringing you your daily Colorado Rockies talk right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, where you can find your team every day. And if your team is the Colorado Rockies, you're in the right spot. Shout-outs to our everydayers out there. Shout-outs to all of y'all tuning in and enjoying the content, and letting me know what's on your mind when it comes to Rockies baseball. Hey, if you're watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day and you have to turn down the volume with all that shouting, make the switch to Locked On Sports today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel program for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't-miss analysis, opinions, and news, streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Rockies fall to the Diamondbacks last night, fall to 3-9 on the season. The Diamondbacks break a 5-game skid and a 1-run win for the Arizona Diamondbacks. And, there were things to be encouraged by from this game, and things to sit there and look at and be confident in. I think one of the biggest things that you can take a look at, and one of the biggest storylines that's continuing to develop of this season, the Brenton Doyle offense experience here. The guy has a completely different swing. He's hitting, I believe he hit a ball 109 miles an hour off the bat yesterday. These are, when you're talking about encouraging signs, when you're talking about a thing to get excited, very excited about, I guess very excited. Maybe I got to, tamp the brakes a little bit. But if you're looking for a storyline to be really excited about to start this season off, Brenton Doyle's offense is certainly one to be excited about. 13 hits in 43 at bats. He scored 7 times. He's got 2 homers, 5 RBI, and his line is now 302, 333, 868. No stolen bases yet, but the Rockies put him in motion yesterday. If Doyle is hitting and getting on base, whoo, boy, buckle up, man. That guy has got real good potential. And what you saw in yesterday's game as well, and I think there was a key thing here to look at, a play from Nolan Jones as well. The defense is picking up. They're getting more comfortable and confident in what they're doing. They don't look as bad as they did in Arizona. And I think a prime example to look at is Nolan Jones tracking a long fly ball late in that game yesterday as well. It was very similar to a play that he had in Arizona that went over his head and ended up clearing the bases. I think 2 runs ended up scoring on that play. But it's a long run. It's over the shoulder. He makes it kind of like leaning like that. They're the guys that you were worried about starting cold are heating up a little bit. Nolan Jones' offense still needs to get a little bit more going. But like I said yesterday, unlucky when it comes to the zone. I think he was robbed of a couple of opportunities there, but he had some hits in the night before. The things are starting to bubble a little bit here for the young guys. Ezekiel Tovar continues to hold down the number 2 spot in the lineup for the Rockies. The young 3 core, the things are really starting to start heating up a little bit more for them because, I mean, we're 2 weeks into the season now. I mean, we're going to be approaching 15 games here by the end of the week. I mean, the season is underway. So when it comes to getting things going, these young guys are starting to simmer a little bit, and that is exciting and positive news for the Rockies. On the flip side, unfortunately, 2 veteran players are really worrisome, and that's in Brendan Rodgers and Chris Bryant. I mean, Rodgers, I at least can give some of the benefit of the doubt of, hey, we've seen it before. We've seen a really tough start into really good finish. He might just need more time to get going. That happens for baseball players, especially within the first months of the season. It's tough to sit there and say we need a whole month to get going for a player of his skills, but we've seen the adjustments that Brendan Rodgers has made throughout seasons before in order to get back on track. We haven't seen the Chris Bryant adjustment because realistically, I think for the Rockies' Chris Bryant experience, you'd be sitting here looking at this start from Chris Bryant and you'd say, he's hurt. Something's not right. He's not, he's hurt. He isn't seeing things, but he's not hurt. I don't think that that's the case. I mean, they've played him in right field multiple times. He's not wincing. It just doesn't look like he's seeing the ball. It just looks, and it's something, and I know it's a crazy thing to do, but my senior year of baseball, I struggled mightily. It was really tough for me. It was my last year playing a competitive season of baseball, and I understand that the difference is here. But man, when you feel like you're in an 0-2 count all the time, your confidence as a hitter just plummets. You just, especially at that level, especially with Merrill Kelly on the bump, especially with an umpire with umpiring crew that hasn't been the best in this series. It's tough, but hopefully when the breakout happens, you can leave it behind, because these bad stretches do happen for baseball players, and hopefully Chris Bryant is being the professional enough, being the pro that he is, being someone that has had success in the game of ball. We can hopefully we can hope for a bounce back, but I didn't expect this many strikeouts. I didn't think that this was something that I didn't think it's something that we'd expect. But it's also like, yeah, you gotta hope that it pans out. You gotta hope. I mean, I guess, geez, I'm reading these freaking death threats from the other days. Like, knock that crap off. Folks, that stuff is never acceptable. Never acceptable. It's baseball. It's a game. Chill out. Like legitimately, chill out. like that type of you have to give it, like, as frustrating as the Chris Bryant experience has been, the season isn't over. The first month of the season isn't even over. And yes, this initial first sample size is really worrisome, especially with Chris Bryant being the healthiest version that we've seen of him this year. But you gotta back your guy up. I mean, it's been interesting to hear boos at Coors Field. I can tell you that. I mean, and yes, that booing is a way to express your frustrations, and certainly, it's not surprising to hear the boos when it comes to Chris Bryant. But eventually we're going to have to, especially, you remember with Philly and the guy that said he didn't want to be there last year. And I think Susie Hunter wrote about that. I can't remember who wrote about this. It might've just been another person on Twitter. I think I saw this where they're saying it was pretty surprising that Philly reacted better than Colorado to one of their players struggling. I mean, I think it would be beneficial today if instead of boos, Chris Bryant hears some cheering to try to beef it, to encourage him a little bit. You can sit and say what you want, but the Rockies are going to play Chris Bryant. He's going to start. He's going to be in there. He still is a factor for this team. So why sit there and dwell on the negatives when you can hope for the positives? Because this team needs Chris Bryant and Brendan Rodgers. No way around it. They need the offensive potential that they can bring, or the Rockies need to make the tough decisions when it comes to Brendan Rodgers, when it comes to the trade deadline this year. If you're not confident in Rodgers, you're going to have to assess that as you're figuring out what you want to do with Amador and everything there in the second half of the season. But for right now, there are no more concern or higher concerns I have for the Rockies offense than Brendan Rodgers and Chris Bryant. It is, I mean, it's been the approaches up there. It's been the swings. It's been a lot of things, but I know Brendan Rodgers has bounced back from batting sub 100 in a month before. And I'm hoping that Chris Bryant has the abilities to bounce back and hang in there as well, because the Rockies, they're going to need them both here as they look to win the series against Arizona today and got a big road trip ahead. So, all right, let's wind down. I actually want to wind down the show with some words for a former player. And I want to give my shout outs to Trevor Story, who just got some really tough news yesterday, and dive into that a little bit more as well coming up here to close out today's episode of Locked On Rockies. Before we do that, though, want to tell you about the folks that help make this show possible, and that includes eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time, or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit is only available to U.S. customers. This is the Locked On Rockies podcast, for free and streaming on your favorite streaming services, bringing you your daily Colorado Rockies talk right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Thank you for making us your first listen of the day. All right, man, tough news for Trevor Story yesterday as he gets the news that he is done for the season with season-ending shoulder surgery as his injury woes continue. Man, you never root for that stuff. You never root for any for that stuff, especially for a guy that is such a game changer, a guy that has such an ability and such a talent that baseball is better when Trevor Story plays. Boston would love a healthy Trevor Story. And, it's unfortunate. I mean, no one knows more than him that the dealing with what he's dealt with. And then with that injury that he has, I mean, it was just like Brendan Rodgers last year, where that's a play that that's a move. That's a thing that they've done thousands, hundreds, millions of times, diving. And then it's just diving that right angle, hit it and landing the right way to do significant damage to yourself, which it's just got to be. And as for Trevor, the battle to stay healthy. It's the same thing. I think what's got to be going through Chris Bryant's mind right now as well is he's got to be so frustrated that his body feels right. His health feels in the right spot. But then when you get onto the field, the performance doesn't carry over. The health doesn't carry over. And it's been unfortunate that Trevor Story hasn't been able to stay on the field, because when he's been on the field, he's been helpful for the Red Sox. And they were really, really counting on him this year being a healthy and key part of that roster. And man, to see that interview, to hear that interview was tough. I'm a sucker for former Rockies, folks. I especially, you can sit there and say, with I don't even know, Trevor Story didn't really force his way out. I guess there might have been something in his post-trade deadline press conference where how he mentioned that he thought he was going to be gone and finishing out the season with the Rockies. But stories like this are tough, man. And it's really tough for Trevor Story as well to now 3 seasons in a row, massive injury issues getting in the way. So just wanted to say I feel for him. And I think Rockies fans can relate to how much of a bummer that is for one of your big signing, a player that you're really, really excited about to come in. And unfortunately, injuries derailing the career. And man, just a bummer for another Rockies shortstop that just can't stay healthy, even though having game-changing abilities there. I know he's not on the Rockies anymore, but Rockies related. I mean, I think there's another shortstop that got that left the Colorado Rockies and was dealing with injury issues that you could point out to as well. So rooting for Trevor Story all the way, hoping for a speedy recovery, hoping it's a Brendan Rodgers-like recovery where he gets to get back into the season. But when the injury happens in the regular season and not in the beginning of spring training, you're going to miss that last month of the year. So here's hoping that Trevor Story heals quickly. Here's hoping that Brendan Rodgers and Chris Bryant get it a little more figured out and start helping out this Rockies offense. And here's hoping that the Rockies pull off a win today, get their first series win of the season, as Austin Gomber is going to take the bump here for the Roccos in this finale. Day game today, so it's going to be going off earlier than you think. So remember that to tune in early there, I believe, 1:10 Mountain Time there. And let's see who the pitchers will be. Boom. It is Gomber taking on Henry here in the rubber match. Rockies got a chance to get their first series win of the season and end the homestand on a winning note. Folks, that's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Rockies. Thank you so much for making us your first listen of the day. Thank you so much for subscribing to the Locked On Rockies YouTube channel. And thanks for letting me know what's on your mind when it comes to Rockies baseball. Follow us on LO Rockies on X. You can also find us Locked On Rockies on YouTube. And folks, we'll be breaking down all things Rockies right here on the Locked On Rockies podcast. Free and streaming on your favorite streaming services. For your second listen, go check out Locked On MLB. And if you need more Colorado sports coverage, Locked On Broncos, Locked On Avalanche, Locked On Nuggets, and Locked On Buffs got you covered there. And until next time, I'm Paul Holden saying so long from the Locked On Rockies podcast.